Hey, what's up, guys? SleepyJ here, pregame.com, joined by Uncle Dave, NBA golf guru, everything expert. Uncle Dave, we're going to go ahead. We're going to give out a free play for the NBA for Tuesday. You and I were taking a look at the Memphis Grizzlies game against the T-Wolves. Current number in this game right now, Grizzlies -7, 7.5. We have a total of 241. Uncle Dave and I, we're going to go ahead. We're going to attack the total. Uncle Dave, we're looking at the under in this one. What are some of the thoughts you have on this game?
Yeah, but Sleepy, I just go back to game one. I mean, that's where I started. It landed 247, total of 238. Okay, let's move forward. Game two's line 241. I think it's because of game one, Sleepy. I mean, I think that's a mistake we got to take advantage of. If you look at game one, I mean, the T-Wolves shot 50% from the floor, and they shot almost 40% from behind the arc, and I don't think either of those things are going to happen in what is, for the most part, a must-win game at home for Memphis. And again, the Grizzlies they're a team that was actually ninth in defensive shooting efficiency, so I think that's a big time anomaly. The other big takeaway from game one was the two of them shot 70 free throws, and not only is that well above the average for an NBA game, but if they just combine for their respective team averages, they'd only take 50. Then okay, if they only combine for their respective season average in points, both offensively and defensively, they'd score 227. So how do I get to 241? I don't know. And I think another relevant stat was bench scoring in game one. I mean, the T-Wolves actually outscored Memphis's bench by 11, and that's not typical either. I think the Grizzlies were sixth in league in the bench points, and I think they were first in bench rebounds, and that's something else that they need to correct in a big time because they got out rebounded in a big way. So I think all these things in game one were really, I mean, I hate to say anomalies because they happen, but I think more often than not they don't. And the bottom line, I think, is in spite of all the above, the game one landed 6 points higher than this total is right now, and I just think it's entirely too high.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of things there, Uncle Dave. I want to start out with, the crazy percentage in which they shot. Like I watched the game, I went back through, I watched it again, watched all the highlights, and they were making a lot of baskets that I don't want to say they were lucky. I mean, the shots went in, but there were some baskets out there that were a little bit crazy. But one of my concerns for the Grizzlies is, they lost 3 out of their last 4 games, and they allowed 130 points in game one. They have to fix that. They had 139 points given up in the last game of the season, and two out of the last three losses, they gave up 121, 122. That's not going to cut it. That will get you bounced out of the playoffs. The Grizzlies, they have a good defense. I think that that they have to go ahead and fix that. They have to put that into action tonight. The T-Wolves, they can score. And look, they want to run with with Towns and Russell and Edwards and those guys firing away. But I believe that the conversation in the Grizzlies locker room, has to be focused on defense. You can't give up 130 points a game. Now, you mentioned some of the numbers here. Let me go through the regular season stuff. These teams scored 243 points in their first meeting. That's over this total, but that took overtime to get it done. 233, 224, 233 the next 3 games in the regular season. So under this number. Now, the last game, as you mentioned, 247 points. That's a lot. I think that, the playoffs, we've seen a lot of these first games go under the total. And this was one that was obviously went over. And I think they jacked it up just a little bit too high. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yep.
The conversation, Uncle Dave, in the T-Wolves locker room has to be probably focused on their defense, because what can you say about their offense? They scored 130 points. So I'm guessing the bulk of the conversation in both locker rooms is going to be about the defense. You mentioned free throws. I went through, Uncle Dave, and I looked this up. Let me go ahead and throw something at you here. The first quarter of the game in game one, Memphis was in the bonus at the 6-minute mark. The Grizzlies were in the bonus at the 5-minute mark. In the second quarter, the Wolves were in the bonus in the 4-minute mark. The third quarter, the Grizzlies at about the 6-minute mark, and the T-Wolves at about the 4-minute mark. And in the fourth quarter, the Grizzlies were in the bonus at like the 5.5-minute mark. Uncle Dave, that's like what?
I just did the math, Sleepy. It's 39.58% of the game.
That's insane.
It
And
is.
I think a lot of that, Uncle Dave, has to do with I think a lot of that probably has to do with turnovers. They turned the ball over like 28 times in that game, the Wolves 17 times. If you can limit the turnovers, well, then you limit the run out going back in the other direction. I think a lot of guys were, hacking away at each other and things like that. And those turnovers, even though the Wolves won, they turned it over 17 times. The only way, well, one of the ways that you could prevent that, was by slowing down the pace a little bit and not playing this frantic pace. So I think the conversation's about defense, Uncle Dave. I think they slow the pace down a little bit, limit the turnovers, and look, we're going to get a second look. Everything worked on offense, so I believe if there are adjustments that are going to made that are going to be that are going to work, it's going to be on the defensive end to say, what could we do to slow these down? And a lot of those miracle shots, Uncle Dave, I just don't see going down for this game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you take everything you said, take everything I said, and throw out all those sort of deep dive type things which point to the under, the bottom line is if Memphis wants to knock it down 0-2, they can't give up 130 points.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there, Uncle Dave. There's no way that they could give up 130 points and probably win this game tonight. So I expect Memphis to go ahead and ramp up the defense a little bit. And I don't think Minnesota is going to, they're not going to score 130 points in this game. This is an important game for both teams. Minnesota, they win, they're up 2-0. And if Memphis loses, they're down 0-2, and they have to go on the road. I think Memphis will be locked in here on defense. So Uncle Dave and I, we're going to make that official free pick for Tuesday NBA. Uncle Dave and I, we're going under the 241 points in the T-Wolves and Grizzlies game. Make sure you guys go ahead and check Locked In here with our Twitter accounts at SleepyJ_pregame, at Dave_Essler. Make sure you guys check us out also at pregame.com. Guys, right now on pregame, if you want to save a little bit of money, enter code NBA. If you pick up Uncle Dave's player, you pick up my player, any of the other pregame pros, you guys can save a little bit of money. With that said, I'd like to wish you guys all the best of luck for the NBA playoffs on Tuesday. Enjoy the games.